In June 2026, the maritime corridor running through the Gulf of Oman became highly volatile. It is one of the world's most critical shipping choke points, a stretch of water where global trade constantly intersects with heavy military presence. Look at this aerial view of the MT Setabello. It's a Palau-flagged commercial oil tanker. On board were 24 Indian seafarers. They were civilians, entirely disconnected from regional politics or the Iranian government, simply doing their jobs on a commercial vessel. That routine job ended abruptly when U.S. CENTCOM, the United States Central Command, initiated a precision strike directly onto the vessel, triggering a massive engine room fire. Authorities in neighboring Oman scrambled a rescue operation and managed to pull 21 sailors from the burning ship. 3 Indian citizens were missing. On June 11th, the confirmation arrived. All 3 were dead. To this day, their names have not been officially released.
This timeline maps out the terrifying reality of that single week. The Setabello was not an isolated target. During the U.S. naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, CENTCOM hit 3 separate commercial ships in rapid succession. On June 8th, the Marivex; June 10th, the Setabello; June 11th, the Jalvir, all carried Indian crews. In just days, consecutive foreign military strikes in international waters resulted directly in the deaths of 3 Indian citizens. When a foreign power kills civilians in an unprovoked strike, the standard protocol is rapid escalation. You expect primetime addresses, threats of sanctions, and a massive geopolitical crisis. But that is not what happened here. Behind the stone walls of the South Block building in New Delhi, the government's reaction was remarkably subdued. There was no primetime outrage. There were no public statements demanding accountability. Instead, the Indian Ministry of External Affairs relied entirely on quiet, closed-door diplomacy. They summoned the U.S. Embassy's Deputy Chief of Mission, Jason Meeks. They asked for an explanation, they lodged a formal protest, and they kept the details out of the press. The silence from the Indian state stood in stark contrast to the international maritime community. Arsenio Dominguez, Secretary General of the UN's International Maritime Organization, took the podium and explicitly called the attacks, quote, simply unacceptable. Domestically, labor organizations tried to force the issue. The Forward Seamen's Union raised serious concerns, and the Center of Indian Trade Unions demanded that the government speak loudly and firmly against a foreign military killing its workers. We are looking at a deliberate bureaucratic suppression. A violent tragedy in international waters was immediately filtered through diplomatic channels, specifically designed to keep the national temperature low and avoid a public confrontation. Which brings us to the glaring tactical question surrounding the U.S. military's actions. Why use a lethal precision strike on a commercial vessel carrying absolutely no ammunition? If the goal was to stop the ship, standard protocol dictates boarding and detaining the vessel. CENTCOM justified the lethal force by claiming the Setabello was transporting Iranian oil and had failed to comply with instructions. But New Delhi is still left with serious, unanswered questions about the rules of engagement in the world's most congested shipping lane. The reason those questions remain unanswered lies in the political calendar. Just 1 week after these deaths, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was scheduled to hold bilateral talks with Donald Trump at the G7 summit. The Indian government chose not to publicly antagonize the commander-in-chief of the military that had just killed its citizens. This flowchart illustrates the geopolitical double standard. Imagine if the Chinese or Pakistani military bombed an Indian commercial ship and killed 3 sailors. The result is an explosive national crisis. But when United States forces do it, the reaction is a quiet diplomatic summons. The value of a citizen's life on the international stage is not absolute. It is entirely dependent on the strategic importance of the nation that took it. This chart shows the makeup of the global maritime workforce. India is the largest supplier of seafarers on Earth. Nearly 12% of the entire global merchant shipping fleet is operated by Indian labor. Right now, thousands of those essential workers are stranded in the Gulf. They are navigating some of the most dangerous routes in the world, operating in a state of high panic, months away from their families. They are deeply vulnerable. Unlike multinational oil conglomerates or tech giants, seafarers do not have a political lobby. they do not generate primetime news coverage. They have zero leverage to force their government to protect them. While those workers navigate a literal war zone, the nation's leaders are preparing for the heavily insulated, meticulously planned theater of the G7 summit. In exchange for the lives of those 3 unnamed sailors, their grieving families received nothing but bureaucratic paperwork, a closed-door diplomatic summons, a formal protest, and complete silence from their prime minister. The vast machinery of global trade requires a constant supply of human labor to function. When those workers become collateral damage in a superpower conflict, their deaths will never be allowed to interrupt a diplomatic photo op.